Well, it's good to have you back another day here for Bible study at Christ Table. My name's Kevin Young. I am lead clergy at Christ Table, and I'm also wearing a battle scar from a run-in with a garage door. And as you can clearly see, the garage door won the altercation. If you'd like to know more about Christ Table, you can visit the URL that is right there at the top of your screen the entire time that we're here, www.christstable.today. There would encourage you to sign up for the email list so that you will know all of the things that are happening around Christ Table. And we are a ministry that is dedicated mostly to those who are disappointed, discouraged, disillusioned, or done with the church, but also many other people who are a part of a local congregation. Aside from us, utilize us as a secondary spiritual formation resource, and we don't mind that at all. Now, speaking of spiritual formation resources, if you would like more resources to go along with this study, then you can visit the URL that is right there, go.christstable.today/peace. There's a couple of things that you can download there absolutely free, no strings attached. A list of all of the days of the study that we are doing here with Peace, as well as all the readings that go along with those. The readings are relatively simple, usually 1 to 3 verses each and every day. So this is a really simple study. If you would like to also download the study guide that goes along with that, then you can do that there as well. Now, I will say that we offer these printed copies of that study guide that come in a spiritual resource box with other spiritual formation resources to go along with this study. Purchasing those helps us actually fund this ministry and continue to keep these Bible studies coming to you. So feel free, if you'd like to help support us here at Christ Table. That is one of the best ways that you can do it. If you want to give, you can always visit right there. And we encourage you and really appreciate when you do give regularly to Christ Table. We send those spiritual resource boxes for free to you as our thank you for giving. If you donate regularly at christstable.today, you can set up recurring donations there. But also, if you just like the box of spiritual resources that go with this study, you can get that as well, just right there by clicking on the button at that website that says get the box. So feel free to take advantage of that, but there are also free resources there as well. One other thing that I'm kind of continuing to remind us about right now, because it goes along with this idea of peace, not just peace in our nation and in our neighborhoods, but also peace inside. Reconstruct Your Faith. Now, the title actually is Reconstruct Your Faith, but really the book is more about helping you decide whether or not to reconstruct your faith and giving you ideas, possible paths in order to take if you decide to do so. In fact, it even should hopefully help you reframe your spiritual journey, especially if you have doubts or questions. And if you know somebody who has doubts or questions about faith, maybe on the margins, maybe even thinking about walking away from the church or has walked away from the church, I'd encourage you to get this. This is the story of my own difficulty and doubts and questions and disillusionment with the church. And I are hearing from people every day who are finding this helpful, and I'm so grateful for that. If you'd like to find out more information about that, the URL that is right there in front of me, www.kevinyoung.com, is the place where you can do that. Now, getting into today's study, we find ourselves on day 10 in this peace study in Psalm chapter 34, verses 12 through 14. This psalm has traditionally been attributed to David, King David, shepherd boy David. Specifically, the thought is that this was after his altercation with the Philistines in Gath, that he wrote this. It's hard to know some of those details, whether or not they're true, but that's kind of the traditional understanding and interpretation of the setting for the psalm. And I'll tell you, some psalms are difficult. I'll encourage you, though, that if you want to do some extra credit, have some extra time, today is one of those readings where I might encourage you to just sit down and read the entire section, which is Psalm 34. Here we'll only handle verses 12 through 14 as we look and talk about peace for a few moments. But if you're looking for some extra blessing or guidance, I might encourage you to read that entire section. Now, you may have noticed now that we're on day 10 of this, and we still have, 22 more days to go, I think, in this study, is that there are some themes that are beginning to come up that are continuing to be recurring in our conversation. This topic of peace doesn't probably have 32 different facets and nuances in order to look at. It's kind of simple on the surface to understand, but some of the simplest things to understand and to get are oftentimes some of the most difficult to carry out and to live. And so what we may see is that the continual reminder of these things hopefully just kind of beats into our heads this idea that peace is worthwhile to focus on as a follower of the way of Jesus. And I might even say that it's not only just worthwhile, but it is absolutely necessary. And that is what the text seems to indicate from both the Hebrew scriptures as well as the New Testament. So one of the things that is important to point out is that in Hebrew tradition, one of the principal roles of the wise men in Hebrew wisdom was that of education, educating the next generation. Specifically in a patriarchy, it was boys. But we tend to kind of broaden that out and say that, honestly, especially in these days, we see value. Whatever your gender is, not just young boys. But in particular, oftentimes education is one of those things that, though Christianity has done very well early on, has oftentimes dropped the ball over the years. And instead of relying on Sunday school or vacation Bible school to educate young people in the way of Jesus, the Bible seems to indicate that it is the parents' responsibility or the elders' responsibility in the community. Don't rely on Sunday school. Don't rely on vacation Bible school. Don't rely just on, don't rely just on the church or on pastors to do that. Now, obviously, those things work together to help instruct parents in instructing children. But at the end of the day, the responsibility is both at the parental level and at the community level. And at least here in the Hebrew times, in the Hebrew text, what we see here is that one of the principal roles of elders, of sages, of the people in the community that were of advanced age, and we're at this point probably talking 30s and 40s and above, advanced age, in those days was that of education of the next generation and embedding faith, belief in the next generation. So what are some of the things that they would have embedded? Well, lots of things. Certainly the Ten Commandments would have been a part of that. The Shema would have been part of that in Hebrew education. The Mosaic Law would have been very important in Hebrew education. But the Psalms sometimes distills some of those things out for us, and we need to remember that this is a song. Songs are not typically theology. Songs are emotive. Songs are trying to celebrate or remember or lament what's happening inside of the individual or inside of the context of the chaos or the warp and the woof of community. Here, this psalm, Psalm 34, is traditionally seen as being a psalm of thanksgiving or a psalm of gratitude. And if you read all of it as part of extra credit, you're going to see that. But we're going to jump in verse 12. In verse 11, just before this, it's essentially kind of narrowed down the conversation to children. Children, come listen. Children, come pay attention to what I'm about to say. That's what verse 11 says. Again, that education being a responsibility of the elders in the community. Does anyone want to live a life that is long and prosperous? And the rhetorical answer to this is yes. You're always going to have the nutball, right? Like me, in the classroom or in the conversation who's like, no, I don't want to live a long and prosperous life. And it's always going to have that reason why. I've got at least one kid who's that kid, who's always going to take the 180 degree opposite devil's advocate position on this and have, a Matlock, Perry Mason level defense as to why this opposite answer is not just realistic, but is the right answer. But the rhetorically correct answer in the middle of this psalm, does anyone want to live a life that is long and prosperous? All the kids are raising their hands in the air and saying yes. So then keep your tongue from speaking evil and your lips from telling lies. This is a traditional rhetorical device in Hebrew, and it carries over into many other cultures, even into Christian culture, is that there is kind of this separation between good and bad. There's this, call and response. If you want a good thing to happen, then do this. If you want a bad thing to happen, then do this. Kind of this moral teaching idea, which isn't bad, but it's not the totality of religious education. But if you want to live a long and prosperous life, here in Judaism especially, then keep your tongue from speaking evil and your lips from telling lies. This is not bad advice. It's not everything that you need to know about living a long and prosperous life. You need to stay out of playing in the middle of the intersections. You need to not play with firearms. Keep your hand away from the stove. Keep fire extinguisher, nearby whenever you're setting off fire. If you want to live a long and prosperous life, there are many other things that you need to do. But one of the primary things this song says is to keep your tongue from speaking evil and your lips from telling lies. And wow, how much more peace there would be in the world if we could just keep our tongue under control, right? From saying evil things, bad things, hurtful things, harmful things, and keep your lips from telling lies. Keep that out of your mouth, sometimes by commission, sometimes by omission, sometimes by accident, and sometimes on purpose. We tell lies. Stop, the song says. How much better the world would be, how much more peaceful the world would be if we were able to do that, right? If we gave ourselves to doing that, if we had learned that as children and then maintained that through adolescence and into adulthood. But we begin to situational ethic our way right into, it's okay if I lie here, it's all right if I fudge there. The greater good is at stake, so it's okay if I speak evil or tell the truth or tell a lie. I'll get ahead more if I do it. I'll look the other way. I'll climb the ladder. I'll be kind. It's better for me to tell this lie to get ahead so that I can help more people once I get ahead. And we'll rationalize and justify causing lack of peace through speaking evil and telling lies, rather than just keep peace all the days of our life by doing the right thing, even when it's tough. Even when it puts us in a difficult situation, or even when it brings suffering to us, by telling the truth and being honest. What is it that you're hiding? What is the evil that you've spoken or are speaking? Have you sought forgiveness? Have you corrected it? Have you stopped the behavior? And are you lying? I'm not asking you to tell anyone. I'm not asking you to write it down. You know the answer to that. I don't know the answer to that. God knows the answer to that, but certainly if you're continuing to do it, that's not enough to stop you. What is and when will you? Turn away from evil and do good. Children, listen to me. Or childish adults, listen to me. Turn away from evil and do good. Search for peace and work hard to maintain it. Peace. There it is again. It's very interesting the way that this is framed. I'm not sure that we have seen it framed quite this way, though the idea has been in other places that we've looked already, even just 10 days in. But search for peace and work to maintain it. An admonition, search for peace, and then something to do on the basis, once we find it, work to maintain that peace. Peace does not, the psalmist says here, merely arrive. It must be pursued ardently. Peace doesn't just happen. It's something that we make happen, that we cause to happen. We can do things to remove peace, to disrupt peace, to destroy peace, but we can't do nothing and things maintain peace or peace come. What was it that the verse said? Let's go back and pull up one more time. Search for peace and work to maintain it, which implies that without our being actively involved in peace, peacekeeping, peacemaking, that peace will not last. It's not a one and done thing. Boy, isn't that the truth with my kids, right? I can bring peace to a situation. 5 minutes later, everyone's at war again. You can bring peace to an HOA situation. Build bridges. 5 minutes later, everybody in the neighborhood is at war again. I've worked in enough churches, on enough boards, and enough pastorates to know that in congregations, you can bring peace. And then if you stand idly by and don't continue to keep working for that peace, 5 minutes later, everyone's going to be at war again over something else or over some other facet of that thing that you brought peace over that very thing again. Work for peace and then work to maintain it. What was it that we said here? That peace does not merely arrive, but peace must be pursued. What are you doing to bring peace, to pursue peace? On the grand scale, sure. What about on the small scale? In your community? What are you doing to maintain peace? Or are you working against it? It's not standing still. Either moving towards it or away from it. Politics? In your preferred party? What are you doing to bring peace and then to maintain peace between your preferred political persuasion and the other side? Your denomination, your religious bent, and people who disagree with your religious thinking. What about in your home, in your family, in your extended family? What are you doing to maintain peace? In your relationship with your spouse, your partner, are you working for peace? And are you ardently pursuing the maintenance of peace? What about in yourself? Maybe that's the place to start. Peace doesn't just come. You've got to pursue it. That's the word today from Psalm 34. Just a reminder, if you have the study guide, then this question is in there, this activity is in there. But if not, feel free to do this on your own, on a sheet of paper. Think of a place that brings you peace, and then draw a map to it. This one I think actually is pretty fun. So what place to you brings peace, is a symbol of peace in your life? Maybe it's a place that you can go to. Maybe it's a place that doesn't exist anymore. Maybe it's been torn down. Maybe you don't own that house, or the grandparents don't live there anymore. Draw a map to where it was. If you'd like more information, again, we'll put this URL up one more time. You can download all the materials for this or get printed copies of them right there. go.christstable.today/peace. And until tomorrow.